Good morning, everybody. Bro Ed the Red coming to you once again from Louisville, Kentucky. There is a lot to go into this morning. This may take a while. How much of this is really going to matter for how much longer? I don't know. But until such a thing as the economy comes crashing down, which is going to happen if we don't see a power outage first. Not to mention the food shortage and astronomical inflation on the prices of food. Regardless of what happens first, or whether it all happens in succession, each one after another, doesn't really matter. It's going to happen. But until such a time as this does happen, we must fight our enemy. Now, who is the enemy of the state? Or should I say, what is the enemy of the state? What is public enemy number one for all of us, whether all of us realize it or not? It's not a who so much as a what. The Bible makes it very clear that we do not and it says we wrestle not, right, with flesh and blood, but with spiritual wickedness in high places, right? So, I don't know about you, but I am having to be in prayer daily, throughout the day, reminding myself that the Isans themselves, the modern day pathetic excuse for the D's, and some of the R's as well. Like I've said before, I ain't just picking on the D's because some of the R's are just as bad. But they are Isans. Whether they admit it or not, they are. They're proving it. Frequently, every day, they prove it. But even the Isans are not the enemy. The enemy is what they stand for and what they are pushing for. That is the enemy, because that is the spiritual wickedness in high positions of both earthly and heavenly places, which is obviously, as far as I'm concerned, the ringleader of all that is the enemy of our soul, Satan himself. And he's not the only one. There are others that are not even in league with him, who, fallen angels, yes, who have their own agenda, separate from his, different from his. I've discussed that with you in the past, so I don't think I necessarily need to go into that again, unless you guys ask me to. But you can always go into the previous messages and listen to that again. Now, first thing I want to go into is, what is the true definition of a nationalist? Personally, I thought, and still feel, that President Trump's definition of a nationalist was paled in comparison to the true and real definition for a nationalist. I am going to give you, or share with you, the true and real definition for this word. Any and all citizens who want their country to remain sovereign and autonomous, with borders protected by ultimate fortification and legal immigration only. That is the true and real definition for a nationalist. There is no other. Don't let him or anybody else convince you that there is any other definition, because that is the only real and true definition of the word nationalist. At any rate, going on. Time magazine calls for a national school curriculum that teaches children that mass immigration to the U.S. is a positive thing. You want to talk about brainwashing precious, young, impressionable minds? That is what these people want to do. They want to brainwash our youth. Hopefully, their parents are going to be smart enough to counteract that. Grandparents, uncles, aunts, we all have to work on that. Federal judge permanently blocks Census Bureau from asking the time-honored question, are you a citizen of the United States? Now, is that bullshit or is that bullshit? I say it's bullshit. These people are doing everything that they can think of, literally, to destroy this country. Literally, destroy this country from the inside out. Globalist fascist Izan representative introduces a bill to ban such words as illegal alien or even alien from the U.S. government legal code. Again, bullshit. I'm going to bring something up. And this has happened twice now, within a short period of time. I'd say maybe a week, possibly two. When I have been on my way to work, been two incidents when I noticed quite a few. Now, the second time it happened, there was an adult with them. I'm assuming it was their mother. First time, however, there were probably at least 3 or 4 young Congolese boys with 2 or 3 girls. I'm assuming they were a large family of brothers and sisters, but they were by themselves. Why were these kids roaming around the city without any parental supervision? That was my first concern. Secondly, the smug and arrogant way that these boys were carrying themselves was repulsive. What was it? And I saw this both times, when they were the ones that were alone and the ones that were with their mother. And it was just the boys, the girls and the mother carrying themselves quite normally. But these boys, and I'm talking 12 and older, just every time they looked at me, they had this such an arrogant, smug expression on their face, like their shit didn't stink, and they were so much better than me. Or maybe that smug arrogance was them feeling so outsmarting. They'd outsmarted the American government, outsmarted the American people. You didn't want us here, but guess what? We're here anyway, and we gonna rub your face in it. And that's exactly the way that it felt. Now, am I upset with these boys? No. I'm upset with the way that they were carrying themselves, yes. But these boys themselves, they are not my enemy. They're not anybody's enemy. They're boys. They're children. They don't know any better. Someone, somewhere, has taught these boys to think and behave this way. And I would say it was probably the people who gave Mama or Mama and Daddy God knows how many rolls of $100 bills to illegally cross this border and come into this country. If these people had any idea of what is coming down the pipes for the people of this country, they would have stayed where they were. There are tens of thousands, if not maybe even millions of people living in various African countries that live every single day basically in an uninsulated shack, no fortification, no running water, no electricity. I mean, they rough it big time. It's not like they're not accustomed to living that way. Fortunately for them, it won't be so difficult for them when they have to live that way again, because they are accustomed to it. They know how to do it and survive, and even be happy in some cases. But they're in for a rude awakening when all this crap comes down, regardless of what succession it turns out to be. Food shortage, inflation, grid down, economic collapse, whatever order it comes in, they're going to be in for a rude awakening, and so will they mama and they daddy. Mother Jones reports, revolutionary white Americans must be crushed to win race war. How idiotic, how evil of a concept. In order to win a race war, you have to be racist, which there should not even be anything of the sort at all, because there is no need, there is no reason for anything like that to even be taking place, unless you're listening to somebody like Antifa, a terrorist organization, which is all they are. They are totally and completely pro-violence towards anybody who doesn't agree with their mindset and their agenda. Sounds like the D's who are really Izans to me. It sounds a whole lot like them. And their mindset, what they are pushing for to become law, which, again, what they stand for and what they're pushing for, that is our enemy. We have to keep reminding ourselves that human beings are not the enemies of other human beings. It is the evil deeds that they are trying to make law. That is the enemy. What they're pushing for, what they're doing, what the things that they're saying, the brainwashing, these things all combined, that is our enemy. We have to keep ourselves focused on what our true enemy is. It's not a who, it's a what. Thank God that there are at least 2 senators, Cassidy and Cruz, that are calling for Antifa to be labeled as a domestic terrorist organization. That's exactly what they are, and they should be labeled as such. The Izans need an arm of violence to materialize their agenda. That arm of violence, so far, has been Antifa. Now, people, once again, we have to prepare. Regardless, as I've said before, regardless of whether it be, we need to prepare for both, actually. Not only the big one, but short-term power outages, as well as the big one, because we've been having all kinds of attacks on the power grid throughout the country. It even happened here a couple of times. It happened when I was at work. Twice. And there was no logical explanation for it. There was no bad weather, nothing, no reason for the power to go out. And it happened twice. Thank God it was very short, but it did happen. Deutsche Bank is seeing a run on withdrawals in excess of $1 billion a day. Now, folks, you want to talk about economic collapse? That bank is interconnected with banks all over the world. If it goes down, all the rest of them are going to eventually go down too. And it won't take very long before we start seeing the same thing happening here. My suggestion, I'm telling you, before something like that actually happens, you need to have silver, copper coins, as many semi-precious stones as possible. You also need to have some cash, because it's not going to be happening right away that retailers are going to be willing to accept even silver or copper coins that are not legal tender in exchange for goods and services that are still available when the lights go out. Whatever is available, you're going to have cash, and unfortunately, chances are they're more than likely going to inflate the prices of everything dramatically just because they can. People are going to be desperate, they're going to need supplies, and chances are a $2 package of batteries will probably go up immediately to 20 bucks. I'm just saying, expect it. So have some cash on hand as much as possible, because when that happens, they're not going to be accepting things like copper and silver coins right away, because they're not legal tender, and they're just not going to accept them right away. Because they're going to be expecting that it's all going to stop at some point soon, within a few days or a week or so, and everything go back to normal. They're not going to be ready yet to accept that it's not going to happen. What comes first? The food shortage, astronomically inflating prices on food, economic collapse, or the whole country being out of power? Regardless of which one comes first, doesn't matter. If they happen one right after the other in succession, doesn't matter. If we see the power go out, then we won't have to worry about so much the food shortage at all. We won't have to worry about economic collapse, because there won't be an economy anymore to collapse other than what we create in our own communities. You know, that part just doesn't really matter. Personally, I'd prefer to see the grid go down. I just think that would be the best option, but it's not my decision to make as to how that's going to happen. However, we need to understand something ahead of time. When all this happens, regardless of how or what comes first, people are going to be frustrated, they're going to be irritated, they're going to be angry, and they're going to be looking for a group of people to blame. I already know that I'm going to be in at least one of those groups that is going to be singled out for blaming it all on. I already know that, just being gay. There are going to be a fairly large number of people, those that still have the mindset that we're, just a bunch of sinful perverts. We're going to be the ones that they decide that they're going to blame on this, or blame this on, no doubt. And our lives will be in danger, because they're not going to care that some of us, like myself, were in almost 100% support of the conservative agenda. True conservatives. They're not going to care. All they're going to care about is that they need somebody to blame, and they're going to pick us. And there are going to be others, depending on the mentality and the mindset, who are going to pick other people. Ignorant, black and white, may very well pick conservatives across the board to blame, and they probably will. Then, you've got, different people, again, depending on their mindset, their perception, they're going to be picking different people to blame for these things when they come down. And you want to talk about war at that point? Please. What we're seeing now, as far as civil war is concerned with people like Antifa and what have you, what we're seeing now isn't even the tip of the iceberg. When you got all these different groups of people blaming other groups of people for their misery instead of just learning to adapt and go on with life to the best of their ability, which is what all of us should do and what the intelligent people are going to do. Not everybody has all that much going for them up here, as we well know. But we have to remember, even then, to the best of our ability, human beings, regardless of their perception and their mindset, regardless of how much suffering they're trying to inflict on this group, that one, or the other one, because they're blaming them for all their misery, these human beings are not the enemy. Their mindset, their perception, their way of looking at